Hi everybody, my name is Jason Collins, and by the end of this video, you'll be able to remember 30 names and faces in under 3 minutes. That's right. So let's get a couple questions out of the way. Who am I and why should you listen to me? Well, the short answer to that is you probably shouldn't. I'm pretty much a nobody when it comes to memory. Like I've never won any awards or titles. In fact, I've never even competed in a memory event. I'm just a guy who picked up a memory book about 22 years or so ago, and I wanted to share my experiences with you. I also noticed a gap in the education material that's available on YouTube. There doesn't seem to be anything that concisely teaches you how to remember names and faces. So I wanted to step into that gap and provide you guys with the educational material that is contained in this video. So hopefully you guys are here to learn how to remember names and faces. Hey, have you ever heard somebody say, "I'm great with faces, but I just can't remember names"? I mean, of course you have. In fact, we've all said that to ourselves, right? So by the time we get to the end of this video, you're going to have the skills necessary to remember 30, well, or more faces and names of a wide variety of men and women spanning a wide range of ages and ethnicities. There are several methods for remembering names, and I'm going to teach you the one that I learned over 20 years ago. It's been taught by the world-famous card magician and memory expert, Lorayne. His system, in a modified version, was brought to the forefront through infomercials in the late 1990s and early 2000s by Kevin Trudeau. His version was called Mega Memory, and the faces and names chapters were only available in his advanced Mega Memory course. At the core of both systems, though, it's really the same when you get right down to it. And so according to Lorayne, there are 5 rules to remembering names. The error we make is not that we don't remember the name, it's that we never hear the name. If we don't hear it, how are we expected to remember it? So rule number 1 is be sure you hear the name. The second way we mess up remembering names before we even get started is that if the name is too difficult to spell, or maybe it sounds weird, like many foreign names or names in other languages, we tend to give up without ever really getting started. So rule number 2 is try to spell the name. Even if you get it wrong, you still get it right. Look, even the name, if it's something simple like Bill, you still need to make sure you understand the name by spelling it. This will also demonstrate to the person that you're talking to that you're genuinely interested in them, which brings us to rule number 3. Make a remark about the name. Nice to meet you, Bill. Can I assume that's the common spelling of B-I-L-L? That'll get you a laugh, right? But it'll also convince Bill that you're paying attention, right? Rule number 4 is use the name during your initial conversation. Be careful not to overdo this. You don't want to use their name in every sentence, right? But I think it's best if you use the name like 3 times during the first meeting. Nice to meet you, Bill. That's 1. Rule number 5 is say the name when you say goodbye. Now, you've used Bill's name twice, so you really only need to find 1 additional use somewhere in the conversation. Bill, that's a beautiful watch. Where did you get it? Are you enjoying the conference today, Bill? I've heard the weather in Palm Springs is great. Bill, do you golf? And that's really the core to what we're going to learn here. And it really all boils down to one thing, and that's paying attention, right? So if you pay attention, you get a good understanding of how to pronounce and possibly spell the name. You use it 3 times during your initial conversation. If you didn't learn anything else in this video, that in and of itself would increase your ability to remember names by several levels of magnitude. But we're going to get into this a little bit deeper, and we're going to teach you how to remember names and faces. So I've assembled 30 combinations of male faces, female faces, different ages, different ethnicities. I've tried to mix this up as much as I could, and I've randomized the names, and I just picked 15 male names and 15 female names off of the top 100 baby names of the past century. So that's what we're going to do. So we're going to start with this guy right here. And the first thing that I want to teach you about remembering names has more to do with remembering faces than it does with remembering names. The first 5 rules that I gave you a little bit earlier were about the name. Now we're going to talk about the face, right? So what I want you to do is I want you to look at this gentleman here, and I want you to find some feature on his face that sort of sticks out to you, okay? So for me, it's the way that his hair parts completely on one side. Maybe for you it's the nose, maybe for someone else it's the chin or the mouth or the eyes. Pick some feature on his face that you're going to be able to concentrate on so that the next time you see this face, you'll be able to remember that. Now, the second thing that we have to do is we have to take that person's name, which, by the way, is James, okay, and we have to turn that into a picture. One of the easiest ways to do that is to convert his name into something that reminds you of something else. Unless you're dealing with, names that automatically elicit a picture in your mind. Like Bill. You can think of the light bill, or you can think of a duck bill. Sonny. That one is pretty easy. Things like that. Some names automatically cause you to think of a picture, and others don't. So for James, one of the picture words that you can use for James, or the one that I use, is chain. James, chain. It kind of sounds the same to me, and chain reminds me of James. I always use the same picture word for James. It doesn't matter what's going on. Doesn't matter what environment, I can't remember how to say that. It doesn't matter what environment I'm in. I'm always going to use the word James and associate it with chain. You have to be consistent with that. I do encourage you to make these your own, though. So in this one, if we can imagine James, he has his hands locked in chains, and they're stuck right up there to the part of his head where his hair parts. James and chain. That's how I remember that one. The next picture we're going to do is this one. Obviously, in this one, her smile. Okay, her cheeks, her chubby cheeks are sticking out. Right? Maybe the shock white hair is something that sticks out to you. Your job is to find something on her face that you'll remember the next time you see Mary. Now, Mary is one of those names that automatically elicits a picture for me and for a lot of other people, and that picture is the Virgin Mary. So if you can imagine, for me, it's the smile, it's the mouth, it's the teeth, okay? So if you could imagine this lady chomping down like maybe on a statue of the Virgin Mary, which brings us to another part of the developing an effective memory that's very important. Exaggerated action is going to help you remember things. You can't just remember Mary with the white hair and the big smile standing next to the Virgin Mary. There's not enough action there to glue those two ideas together. So you're going to have to use exaggerated, fantastic, sometimes shocking or gross or whatever action. The more emotion that your action can elicit inside you, the easier it's going to be for you to remember these names when time comes. So I'm going to remember Mary's name by seeing her with her great big smiling teeth chomping on the Virgin Mary. You can use whatever picture you like, but that's what I'm using. So moving right along, this lady is our next one that we're going to remember, okay? And pick something on her that you're going to be able to identify with when you see her again. By the way, her name is Patricia. And the picture word that I use for Patricia, I shorten it to Pat, and I think of a pat of butter, Okay? So for me, when I see Patricia, I'm going to think about all of this rich, creamy, ooey, gooey butter that's just coating her and dripping off of her. And maybe when she tries to talk, it gets in her eyes and it makes her eyes squint. Some type of fantastic, exaggerated action to help me associate pat of butter with Pat, which is Patricia. Again, make this your own. Use your own pictures if you can think of some. Maybe yours are better than mine. Maybe mine are better than yours, but yours will be unique to you and much easier and more durable for you. So now we're going to move through these. Now that we've sort of gotten an idea around, you've got to take the name, you've got to associate a picture with the name, and you got to use some fantastic, exaggerated, amazing, emotive action in order to glue those pictures together. This brings us to our next name, and this young man standing here by the steps. The thing that jumps out to me is the guy looks like he's about 12 years old, but yet he has this mustache. Okay, so his mustache is going to be the thing that I key on. I caution you. A lot of people say, "Oh, well, I'm going to key on his red tie." That works pretty well as long as he's wearing the red tie. What happens if you meet him and he's wearing a gray sweatshirt and you keyed on his red tie, and then you find yourself going, "Oh, I recognize your face, but I just can't put a name with it," because you keyed on the wrong thing. Clothing is very, very risky when you use that as your anchor for a person's name. So I'm going to use his mustache because it looks a bit out of place on his young face. By the way, this gentleman's name is Robert, and for Robert, the picture that I always use is robber. Part of that is because in French, his name would be pronounced Robert, which to me is pretty close to robber. So you can imagine that Robert is either being held up by a robber, perhaps he's being mugged, okay? That brings emotion because there's always risk of injury when something like that happens. Or you can imagine that Robert is a burglar or a robber, okay? And with his mask on, the only part that you can recognize is going to be his mustache that's sticking out from the bottom of his mask. So find a way in your mind to associate robber with Robert, okay? The next name that we're going to look at, or rather the next face that we're going to look at, is this gentleman, and I think it's fairly obvious, right? That hair. His hair stands out to me more than anything else, right? The hair has got to be the thing that I'm going to focus on, and probably the thing that you're going to focus on. This guy's name is John, and you might have guessed it by now. Yep. The picture word for John is always going to be a stinky toilet. Like, remember I told you that associating emotion or evoking emotion is very important in getting these things to stick together in your mind. So I'm not talking about, the toilet at a 5-star hotel or the toilet at your house. I'm talking about stinky gas station bathroom toilet. And maybe you can even imagine that John and his shock of curly hair is somehow being impacted by this stinky toilet. And I won't get into detail on that. I'll let you make your own picture story of how to associate John and his crazy hair with a stinky toilet. Now, a lot of guys who do videos on YouTube and talk about memory improvement and stuff like that, they're going to tell you use your own images. Don't go out and download a list of picture and name associations because that's not going to teach you the skills that you need to know. And I totally agree with that. However, in the beginning, if you can't think of a good word for Clarissa, then I think it's okay for you to go and find a list that someone else has already put together so that you can sort of jumpstart yourself. Now, I recommend that you make all of these your own, okay? A toilet for John, that's me. That's just how I chose to do that, right? If you know someone named John that you can more easily associate with that, then that makes it all the better, right? Your list should always be a work in progress, in that you're always refining it and improving it. I'm not a big fan of changing it around for the sake of changing it around, right? If you have learned that the picture word for bill is a duck bill, then let it be a duck bill forever, and don't switch back and forth between duck bill and light bill and things like that. You need to have consistency so that you can use your brain power to work on other things. Feel free to scan this QR code, and that will take you to a list that I didn't put together. This list was put together by some memory experts who have been doing this a lot longer than I have, but it's a free resource online that you're welcome to use. And as always with things like this, there will be a link in the description. So if you want to just click on that, go download the list, and then make changes to it to suit your needs. Now, moving right along, we are looking at this as our next face name pair to remember. She's got some pretty distinctive tattoos. Tattoos usually hang around with people for most of their life, and her name is Jennifer. I'll let you guys marinate on this for a few seconds to let that soak in. Make you a picture word for Jennifer, and then associate it with her tattoos or something else on her that catches your attention. The next one that we have is this gentleman, and his name is Michael. Again, make your own picture words for this. Maybe you know someone named Michael, and you can imagine them, interacting in some nonsensical, crazy way, and associate that with something that sticks out about this particular person's face. Okay, so there we have Michael. The next one is this young lady, and her name is Linda. Again, make sure that you are identifying something on her that you're going to remember when you come back the next time and you see her face, right? Her smile, her nose, her eyes, her chin. Something on her face that's going to make you remember her face, and then link that to a picture word that you have made for Linda. Moving right along, we have this guy. Okay, he looks like he'd be a ton of fun at a pool party, and his name is David. Okay, make up your own words for that. I mean, I'm happy to share mine with you guys. For David, I always think about David as in David and Goliath, because it's really easy then for me to make an association between that character, okay, because he's performing an amazing action. He's using a sling and he's slaying a giant, and so it's easy for me to do that. But I'm not saying that that's good for you. That's just good for me. So I want you to make an association between this guy and the name David, which brings us to this lady, and her name is Elizabeth. Okay? Now, one of my daughters' middle name is Elizabeth, so that makes it really easy for me to create a picture word for Elizabeth, because I already know someone who is close to me, and I can use that association to help me make a link between the name Elizabeth and this lady right here. Maybe I would imagine my daughter engaging with this lady in some, crazy, fantastic, emotional way, and then that would help me remember that, and then pick an anchor spot on her, something that stands out about her that I can use to remember that next time, and remember that her name is Elizabeth. Okay, as we go through these names and faces, we're going to do periodic reviews, because I want to make sure that you guys are getting everything that you need out of this course. So we're going to do a quick periodic review. We're going to zip through these fairly quickly, and you guys keep up. The great thing about YouTube video is if you sort of hit a spot where you're getting confused or whatever, you can always hit pause. You can always back it up. That's the great power of video. So we're going to start right here. Everyone remembers this guy, right? Because we made a little, not the best rhyming, but it works good enough. His name is James, and we use chains. Remember the chains up over the top of his head, and they are attached to the part on the side of his hair. That's what I use to remember that. The next one that we have here is this lady with her big smile and her teeth. Does anyone remember what she was chomping on? That's right. Mary was chomping on the Virgin Mary, and that's how I remember that. Now we've got this lady, okay? Remember, her eyes are squinting. Why are her eyes squinting? Because something was getting into her eyes, and that was a pat of butter, melted butter. Her name is Pat. Patricia is the name that we're looking for. Moving on down, we've got this guy right here. Remember, his mustache looks a little bit out of place because he looks like he's so young. And in our picture, to remember him, we had a robber, and his name is Robert. I apologize for the sirens outside. That's one of the negatives, I guess, about having a corner office is you get twice the street noise that you would get if you were in the back of the building, but I wouldn't trade that, so that's how we have that. Now we have this guy, remember, with his big, curly, Brillo pad kind of hair, right? Okay, and what was it that he was doing with his hair? Perhaps in your picture, I know it was in mine, he was scrubbing a nasty John. Right, exactly, okay? Moving right along, we have this young lady with her tattoos, and we remembered because we linked to that, and her name is Jennifer, okay? Now we have this gentleman right here, and we remember his name is Stephen. No. His name is Michael. You guys caught me on that one. Moving right along, after Michael, we have this lady right here, and her name is Linda. Exactly. Okay. Now we've got our party guy, right? Remember, he was going to be great at parties. I told you guys a little story about how I remember his name. Does anyone remember that? Oh, that's right. David and Goliath, and that's how I remember that this guy's name is David. Okay. Now we have this lady, and do you guys remember the story I told about that? Because I have a daughter whose name is Elizabeth. Very good. So those of you who remembered all 10 of those, congratulate yourselves because you've probably never done that before. And we're going to go on into this, and we've got a couple more sets of 10 that we're going to go through. And we're going to go through those quite a bit quicker than we did the first 10, okay, because I want to make sure that you guys are catching this, but I also want to make sure that you're always under the pressure of doing it faster. So we're going to go with this gentleman right here, okay? Quite obviously, you know, the salt and pepper hair, the salt and pepper beard, pretty easy to associate that, use that as an anchor, and this guy's name is William. So find your own picture word to associate with William, or for those of you who paused the video, or for those of you who scrolled down into the show notes and clicked on the link, perhaps you already have a name for William. If that's the case, great. Now we're going to throw a tiny bit of a curveball at you. We're remembering 2 names now, okay? So we have the young lady and we have the older lady. Perhaps that's a granddaughter and a grandma. You can use your own imagination to make an association through there. For me, the grandma has some pretty distinctive hair, and the granddaughter has this really long feminine neck. That's what I would use to associate these two. And then I would find picture names to go with Barbara and Susan. Hopefully you guys are finding that easy as well. So we're going to keep moving on through this. Barbara and Susan. And next we have this guy, okay? Super cheerful guy. And for me, it's the crow's feet, right? The wrinkles around his eyes. He looks like the kind of guy who smiles all the time. So it's going to be really easy for that. You can also look at, this guy has a distinctively pronounced forehead. Maybe you want to use that as your anchor point for this guy. And you want to remember that his name is Richard. So whatever picture you would have for that, maybe it's King Richard, okay? Whatever you find that works best for you, find something on Richard's face to make that association. We're going forward now. We've got this guy, okay? Whoa, hang on. We've got this guy. He's got long hair. He's got tattoos. Looks kind of like a world traveler. Find something that you can anchor on with this guy, and remember that his name is Joseph. Okay? Once you've got that locked in, Joseph, find you a picture word for that and associate it with his name. And then we've got one more pair, okay? So we've got a couple here. She's got this super curly red hair. I mean, you can't miss that. You could probably see it from across the street. The guy is quite the opposite. He has no hair, okay? So what one has, the other one doesn't have. So their hair or lack of hair would probably be what I would choose as an anchor for them. And then all I would need to do is to come up with a picture word for their names. And obviously, I'll share these with you guys as we go along, just when I have some that pop out for me to share with you. For Jessica, I always use Jessica Rabbit from Roger Rabbit because she's super easy to remember. She's got red hair. This girl's got red hair. It's a natural thing, so I might imagine this Jessica dressed up like Jessica Rabbit, singing to Roger or doing whatever sort of crazy cartoonish thing that I could think of that would help me remember that her name is Jessica. And then I would find another picture word for Thomas and do the same thing. And moving right along, we have this gentleman, super bright smile, right? I mean, this guy has an electric smile, and you're going to find that, things like that are going to be really easy for you to key up on, because this guy, as soon as he meets you, especially if he recognizes you, he's going to smile, and then all you have to remember is that his name is Charles, right? So once you get these picture words locked into your mind, and you can remember really, really quickly, that Jessica is Jessica Rabbit, and Elizabeth is my daughter, and Mary is the Virgin Mary, and James is Chain, okay? Once you get those locked into your mind, it'll be really easy for you to make these picture associations and realize when you see this guy that his name is Charles. Next, we have this lady, okay? Her style is very much unique, and it's something that you would probably recognize right away about her, right? So you can use that to your peril, because sometimes people change styles, or sometimes people are forced because of circumstance or whatever to wear different clothing than what you originally saw them in or whatever. So I do say use that at your peril, but you can also use it. Her dreadlocks are probably going to be with her regardless of whether she changes clothes or not. So we could use that to remember that her name is Sarah. And again, just when these pop up, I'll remind you that Sarah I always use a picture of the desert, Sahara. So the Sahara Desert will always be used for the name Sarah. And so you come up with some kooky, loopy, loony, fantastical. We have another, like, we really don't live in a high crime area. I'm not sure, it's because I'm recording. If I were sitting here doing nothing, it'd be completely silent. So anyway, this is Sarah. I use the picture Sahara Desert. Link your idea to her dreadlocks, and you're well on your way to being able to remember her. Next in this set, we have this lady, okay? And her name is Karen, and there have been some recent sort of not nice connotations about the word Karen, but you can use that to your benefit if you choose to, So, find a feature of her face, and she's got sort of thick eyelids on the bottom and on the top. So that's probably what I would key on, would be her eyes. And then, I would imagine her crossing her hands and tapping her foot and demanding to speak to the manager, as Karens do a lot of the time. But you use your own association for those. Going right along, we have this gentleman. Okay, this guy is really, there's a lot you can key in on this guy, right? He's got a military style, very short on the sides, flat top haircut. He's got a really nice white beard, and he's tattooed from stem to stern. So you pick something on his body, his face, his hair, his appearance. You pick one aspect of that and use it to remember that his name is Christopher. Okay? And again, Christopher, you can kind of break this down into two pieces, right? And so the picture combination that I use for Christopher is Christ, as in Jesus Christ, and gopher. So I imagine some crazy interaction between Jesus Christ and a gopher and this guy, okay? So maybe Jesus was tattooing a gopher, or maybe a gopher was tattooing Jesus, and that would make it really easy for me to remember when I see this guy with his tattoos on his neck. I can go, tattoos, what does that remind me of? That reminds me of Christ and a gopher, so this guy's name has got to be Christopher, okay? This lady right here, like, it's super easy to pick out something to use, and that's the wrinkles on her face, especially the wrinkles around her mouth, right? That really sticks out to me. And her name is Lisa, and the picture association word that I always use for Lisa is the Mona Lisa. And so if you can imagine the Mona Lisa, and as you're looking at it, you're standing in the Louvre, and you've been waiting all day, and you've gone through all the crazy lines that you have to go through in order to get up close to the Mona Lisa, and you get up there, and you notice that her lips and her mouth have really begun to show age, and they're wrinkled all around the mouth. So that way, when you see this Lisa, you notice her wrinkles, and you're automatically reminded of the Mona Lisa, which reminds you that her name is, in fact, Lisa. Now, as before, we're going to do a progress review. We're going to go back to... We're going to go back to, not to the beginning. I think you guys got the ones in the beginning. I think we're going to start here with this one. Remember, salt and pepper beard, and this guy's name is William. Okay? Salt and pepper beard, William. You guys probably used your own associations for that, and that's fine. Our next was a pair, a grandmother and a granddaughter. I used the grandma's hair, okay? And then we used the granddaughter's long neck to remember that Barbara and Susan are their names, okay? Moving right along, we got this guy. Remember, we decided he smiles a lot. It's probably going to be happy the next time you see him, but he's got those crow's feet around his eyes. So we're going to use that to remember that this guy's name is Richard, okay? We've got this guy. Tattoos, long hair, sunglasses, world traveler. His name is Joseph. Next, we have our couple. Remember, one of them has hair, one of them doesn't have hair. The girl that has the red hair is associated with... Who's she associated with? Yeah, she's associated with Jessica Rabbit, and her name is Jessica, and she's hanging out with Thomas. All right, let's see here. We've got this gentleman, right? Again, super electric, bright smile, and his name is Charles. Okay, good deal. Hope everyone got that. Make your association strong. This reminds me of the Green Lantern movie, when they were fighting, and one of them said, your constructs are weak. When it comes to improving your memory or unlocking the powerful memory that you already have, it's very, very, very important that you do not have weak constructs. Your constructs have got to be super solid, which brings us to this gal. Remember, we talked about her dreadlocks are what we were going to remember. And what was the picture word that I used? desert, the Sahara Desert, to remind me that her name is Sarah. Okay, we got this one. Everybody remembers this one, right? Because I said modern internet memes have really gotten us to the point where we make some weird associations with the name Karen. Exactly. Okay, now we got this guy. Does anyone know right off the bat, right? Remember, he's got the tattoos on his neck, okay? And the tattoos reminded us that someone was tattooing a gopher, and that reminded us that this guy's name is Christopher, right? Okay? So we've got this gal, and the trigger for hers, or the peg, or the whatever we want to call it, the feature on her face that's going to remind us are the wrinkles around her mouth, because after standing in line all day at the Louvre, we were shocked to find out that the Mona Lisa had not aged very well. All right, that's our second progress review. So if you guys got all 10 of those, and you got all 10 of the previous ones, that means already you have remembered 20 name and face combinations. So we've got 10 more to do before we get to the end, and then we're going to have a complete review, and you guys are going to be able to test your mental memory muscles. And to get moving, we've got this guy, okay? And again, I think it's 11 or 13% of the population has red hair, something like that. Let's say 12%, just to get in the ballpark. So remembering red hair is usually a pretty safe thing. Yeah, people can dye their hair and stuff like that, but red hair is usually a pretty safe thing, and that reminds us that this guy is Daniel. Again, for me, I use a lot of biblical references for my names, just because that's something that I'm familiar with. Daniel was thrown into a lion's den, and so in order to remember this guy's name, I would peg his red hair, and I would imagine that hungry lions were coming out of his red hair, or hungry lions were eating his red hair, or something like that, and that would remind me that this guy's name is Daniel. Now we've got this lady. Her eyes, she has got these wonderful steel gray eyes. She's got freckles. Freckles are always a good thing to anchor on. Pick something on there and remember that her name is Nancy. Okay? Nancy. This guy right here, again, white hair, great white teeth, piercing blue eyes. There's so many things on this guy that you could make an association with, that you can really pick whatever stands out the most to you. And this guy's name is Matthew. Okay? Now, I say I use biblical references, except for Matt. Matt is always going to be Matthew, and Matt is always going to be like a doormat, right? A welcome mat, or whatever, right outside the door. So I'm going to imagine, that something about this guy, and I'm going to say this, and I'm not trying to be, like gross or violent or whatever, even though gross violence is probably one of the greatest actions that you can use to glue these things together. So I'm going to imagine this guy trips over a doormat and whacks his teeth and breaks all of his teeth out in the front. So that way, when I walk up and this guy smiles, I see his teeth, and I go, hey, those teeth remind me of you tripping. I'm not going to say that to him, but in my mind, I'm going to be saying to myself, what happened to his teeth? They got knocked out. Why did they get knocked out? He tripped over the mat. Oh, Matt, your name is Matthew. And he's going to be like, oh, that's right. That's how you remember these things. Fantastic, extraordinary, gross, funny, violent action is the best way to cement these things in your mind. Okay? So now we've got this young lady. Her name is Betty. Okay? And so study her appearance. Again, the easy thing would be the headpiece, right? The head covering. That can change. So again, you can use it, but use it at your peril, because that's something that could change about her, right? Facial features, scars, marks, tattoos, freckles, the way hair grows on one side or whatever, those things are going to be much more durable. But I'll let you uh, find you an anchor on her. And I'll also say that for me, Betty is always Betty Boop from the Betty Boop cartoons. That's what I always use for Betty, because that's a iconic thing that sticks in my mind. Her name is Betty. We're moving on to this guy. Oh my goodness, this guy, right? What could we choose to focus on with this guy? The eyebrows, the nose, the mustache. So many things on this guy you could use for an anchor, but I am going to use the nose. Okay? This guy's name is Anthony. I use Tony for Anthony. Tony is Tony Soprano from the series The Sopranos. So I imagine Tony Soprano interacting with this guy's nose in some way that's going to be memorable for me, and for any of you guys that watch The Sopranos or whatever, it's probably going to be some form of violent action, because that was sort of the hallmark of the show. So maybe Tony Soprano is smacking this guy in the nose or something like that. So when I see the guy, I'm going to think, that nose reminds me of Tony Soprano. Tony is Anthony. Your name is Anthony. Moving right along, we got this guy. Probably not the guy who gets invited to parties a lot. I'm just going by the expression on his face. He may be a completely cheerful and jovial guy, okay? But for this guy, I'm going with the beard. I'm going with the white beard with this guy. And we're going to going with the beard, and his name is Mark, okay? For Mark, it's always for me, magic marker. Marks a lot, okay? A big black magic marker. So I'm going to imagine this guy with his white beard and is coloring it in with a big black marks a lot magic marker. So when I see this guy, I go, oh, his beard's white, but it's supposed to be black. And how did it get black? It got black because someone colored it with a marker. Your name has got to be Mark. And that's how you do that. And the faster you get, the more you practice this, the faster you get at it, until it becomes really second nature stuff for you. We've got this lady. She's having a glass of wine with a friend, okay? Her name is Margaret, okay? Again, come up with your own picture words for these. Spend some time studying people's faces. Go sit in, at the mall or the store or whatever, and people watch and say, okay, this person coming here, I notice about them that they have, amazing green eyes. So that's the thing I'm gonna key on with that person or whatever. And pick something that's gonna help you remember that person's name. So we got this young lady. She's taking a selfie. Pick something about her that you're going to be able to remember, okay? And create yourself a picture word for Sandra, okay? So for Sandra, for me, okay, it's going to be kind of like Sarah, which was the Sahara Desert. Sandra is always going to be sand, a beach, okay? I don't use two deserts because that's just going to confuse you if you have to remember a lot of people. But you can remember Sandra, Sandy, beach. That's going to help you to really, really be able to call her name when you see her again. Okay? So now we're back to our progress review. We have blown through 10 more of these. So we're almost to the end, and we're going to roll back up here, and we're going to go through this one more time. We're going to do this pretty quickly with you guys because I know you're catching on by now, right? So this guy, red hair. Does anybody remember what was his name? Daniel. You got it, okay? Daniel. Next we have this young lady. Remember, we talked about her. Great eyes, okay? And her name was Nancy. Exactly. Now we got this gentleman. Remember, I said he was going to trip and fall, and he's going to knock his teeth out. And what did he trip over? The doormat. His name is Matthew. We've got this young lady. What did you key on with her to help you remember that her name is Betty Boop? That's right. Okay, moving right along. We've got this guy. Remember, Tony Soprano was smacking him in the nose. So this guy's name is Anthony. Great. Remember this guy? We decided he probably wasn't going to get invited to parties unless, of course, he used a giant magic marker and colored his beard. So his name is Mark. We've got this young lady, wine with her friend. Her name is Margaret. And we're down here with this girl. What did we remember about her? We tied our appearance anchor to a sandy beach to remind us that her name is Sandra. Okay, so look, congratulations, guys. You just spent the last 46 minutes learning 30 names and faces. And you're like, Jason, geez, that's like, okay, so 30 names and faces in 45 minutes, that's not the greatest trick in the world. You'll learn to do it faster. I've talked a lot, and I've been explaining to you guys how to do it. So one of the questions that people ask me is okay, so these are pictures, and these are static, and, are you going to be able to remember these people if you see them in a different context? So let's test that a second and see, okay? Do we remember this lady? Okay? She's got a mask on, so if your trigger had anything to do with her face, you can't see that now. But did that really have a negative impact on your ability to recognize her? Okay? So if we had to guess, which one of these pictures would you say is Sandra? If you said the picture on the left, you would be 100% right. So this is called proofing, and proofing is when you test your skills in different environments and under different conditions. So let's go check this again. Okay? So does anybody remember this guy? Remember, his hair was what we used to trigger on. These are completely different environments. So if you looked at this picture and you said, oh, yeah, Jason, I know that guy's name is John, you're well on your way to being able to use this information in a way that's going to be beneficial for you. You already have begun to generalize the information, okay? So I'll tell you what we're going to do next. I am going to put you guys into a bit of an exercise here. We're going to give you guys one more test. I've got all 30 images queued up, and we're going to run through those 30 images in under 3 minutes. At the beginning of the video, I promised you that you would be able to remember 30 names and faces in under 3 minutes. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to get this rolling for you guys. I'm not going to talk at all through it. There are cues so that you'll be able to do this on your own. And I want you to be honest. You're going to be able to see each face for a total of 6 seconds. 3 seconds, there's not going to be a name. The last 3 seconds, there will be a name. See if you can name the people before the name appears on the screen. If you can pull this off in under 3 minutes, you are well on your way. So let's get that started. Okay. Wow. That was incredible, right? Blowing through those names so fast like that. Golly, did you get it done? How did you do on it? Do you feel like you've mastered this technique, or you're at least on your way to mastering the technique? Man, I'm so glad you guys have stuck with me for this long. This has been amazing. I'm so happy that you guys are learning to unlock the powerful memory that you have inside of you. So I want to give you guys a bit of a teaser on something that I'm working on. If you noticed when we were going through the the pictures, down in the lower right hand corner is a number, and each one of the slides that we have are numbered, and they're numbered from 1 to 30. Okay. And my next video that I'm going to put out for you guys, that if you're watching this after I've got it done, will obviously be linked in the comments or the end card or something like that. You'll be able to easily access it. I'm going to teach you how to remember these names in order. So if you need to remember, okay, who was number 11? Okay, well, that was William. Okay, who was number 17? Oh, that was Thomas, and Thomas was hanging out with Jessica. So I want you guys to be able to do that, and that's going to be the next video. We're going to build on what you've already learned here, and you're going to learn to remember these names in order so that you can then call them out in and out of order. Or I can say, what is number 16? And you'll be able to tell me that that was Jessica, or I'll say what was number 1, and you'll be able to tell me that that was James, okay? And so that's how we're going to do that in the next video. So what does that mean? That means that now is a good time to subscribe if you haven't, and it is an excellent time to like the video. That really helps, with the YouTube algorithmic robot that decides who gets to see what type of content. And also, drop a comment in the comment section below and tell me what you guys would like to see. Give me your feedback on this video. Was it good? Did I talk too much? Did I not talk enough? Did I give you details? You tell me what you want to see in the future, and I'm happy to do that. I really want to create more content like this so you guys, can unlock that amazing, magnificent memory that you have inside you, because we're going to talk about a lot of stuff going forward. We're going to talk about grocery lists, and we're going to talk about how to remember dates and appointments and just all kinds of stuff like that. But I thought this would be a good place to start because I observed a gap in the information that was available online. So hey guys, I appreciate it. I love the fact that you guys are tuned into this. My name is Jason Collins. I can't thank you enough for engaging with my videos, and I'll see you next time.